Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Thank you for joining us today, and we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. So as we continue to watch and monitor this conflict, it is very apparent what the Russian strategy is at this point. It is to bleed the Ukrainian state and military dry, while at the same time the Russian military strengthens itself. At which point in time we expect major offensive operations by the Russians. We are seeing and observing offensive operations by the Russians as we speak. These are not traditional maneuver operations that we have seen in earlier stages of the conflict. Again, the strategy that the Russians are using is designed to fix and destroy Ukrainian military units that are at the line of contact and behind the line of contact. This is a Russian strategy. What we're seeing in terms of how the war is being fought, especially in areas such as Avdiivka, Bakhmut, to the north near Kupiansk, and even in the south, in which we observed this bulge, this cauldron, this salient be created by Ukrainian forces. But the reality is those Ukrainian forces that continue to occupy and operate in this salient are continuing to take casualties day in and day out. Now, we obviously have seen reports of Ukrainian operations taking place on the eastern bank of the Dnieper River. Now, again, as I've talked about before, these are raiding operations not designed to take and hold large chunks of territory, but to create annoyance operations and to create a narrative that the Ukrainians are on the offensive on the eastern bank of the Dnieper River. The reality is the Russian position is very strong. They still maintain Oleshki and other areas along the Kherson front. And we don't expect a successful Ukrainian breakthrough. If the Ukrainians were not able to break through south of Orikhiv without having to conduct amphibious operations in which they possess tanks and armored infantry fighting vehicles, they are not going to be able to break through in areas in which they don't have tanks and armored infantry fighting vehicles and actual maneuver units. So it's very important to understand what is happening in Kherson versus what is happening in Zaporizhzhia. But again, as we understand, the offensive by the Ukrainians in Zaporizhzhia have failed. Most of the fighting, some of the heaviest fighting, is now taking place within the vicinity of Avdiivka. That is where we're at right now. Again, the Russians continue encirclement operations both to the southwest and northwest of Avdiivka. Those operations are continuing. They continue to take land. They continue to take territory. They continue to prosecute offensive operations. They, meaning the Russians. The Russians have also started to increase the tempo of air operations against Ukrainian forces. We are seeing numbers reaching 100 plus sorties per day by Russian forces launching air attacks against Ukrainian targets, both along the line of contact and well behind the line of contact. We're also seeing an increase in the use of Russian drones. Again, kamikaze drones, not surveillance drones, but actual drones in which the Russians are using these systems to attack targets directly. Now, obviously, here in the United States, any support of Israel is now tied to direct support for the Ukrainians. That is something that is going to cause deep division here in the United States. And it's going to hamper efforts to provide continued support for the Ukrainians, just the way it is. The American citizenry is not going to be placed in a position where they're having to say, okay, if you want to support Israel, you have to support the Ukrainian government. It's going to backfire. So that is where we set for today. We will continue to monitor. We will continue to report. Thank you for joining us. Again, please spread those earlier videos about what has happened in the United Kingdom. It's very important for people to understand what is happening in our society. Thank you very much. Have a good day.